Hello, my fellow ironic and unironic radical alt-centrists. Today's podcast episode is going to be a little bit different than usual. Instead of me and Peyton having a guest on and having a great, productive discussion about whatever it is and us asking them a majority of the questions, today we're kind of doing a little bit of the reverse. Today it's just going to be me and one other fellow, and it's going to be a good opportunity to get to know a little bit more about me and my views. Unfortunately, Peyton is not here today. It's final season. Um, and we just wanted to change things up a little bit, see how things go. So enjoy. Let us know if this is something you'd like to see more often, more of us answering questions. But after this, it'll be more of back to the normal. I hope this gives you some context for the episode, and I hope you enjoy.
Joe, you have a little overview of who you are and what your channel is about.
Uh, so my channel, I run it with my friend Peyton. Um, our channel is called Alt-Centrism Central. The point of it is essentially to um, try to understand where people are coming from, reduce polarization, and understand that most people generally have good intentions with what they believe. So, in a sense, we don't really have any political enemies. But it's not centrism in the sense that you sit on the fence and don't take sides. It's just a play on the words, and it's a meme, essentially.
It's a meme.
Well, I mean, it's not. I mean, the channel itself isn't a meme, but the name is a meme. It's
Oh,
it's it's making fun of we're making fun of ourselves, basically. Alt-centrism, like what does radical alt-centrism even mean?
okay. Right. So, we have Joe here on this to talk about the topic. Is life itself the most valuable thing? Oh,
Yes.
you,
Right. So generally, when people talk about this, we divide it into two sides, I guess. Do we consider life to be the most valuable thing, uh, or the most meaningful thing, or are there other things in life that are more valuable than living? Like, say, is there anything worth dying for?
right. Well, before we get deeper in this topic, it'd be good if you could start with some definitions if you have any.
What was that? Didn't quite hear you.
Before we go like deeper in this topic, it'd be better if you could go with some definitions if you have any, like if you want to define anything in particular.
Definitions. Good question. Nothing comes to mind right away, but if something comes up, just let me know and I'll define it the best way I can.
Right. Well, our thing was that life itself. What you're questioning here is life itself. Saying like if something else gives life meaning, but like life can have would be left less meaningful or less valuable without that specific thing, like liberty and meaning.
Yeah, that's the take that I'm going with, and I cannot speak for everyone. I think everyone has to make up their own minds on this subject. So I'm not saying that my opinion is the objective truth or anything like that. But yes, I would say that there are things in life that are more valuable than life itself, or things that, it's not worth living without these things. To an
Okay.
extent, to an extent.
So life that when you're talking about, do you mean human life or do you mean life in general?
Um, I mean human life, not just life in general, because human life, we're all conscious, and we all have, I guess, we know that we are alive, right? And we know that we exist and that we are things, and that. Oh, welcome back. Um, so I was just saying, we humans, we know that we're alive and we exist, and our existence is at least a lot more real than we can prove for, say, animals. We don't know what level of awareness they really have. So when I speak of the value of life, I'm specifically talking about human life, and that's not to take away from animal rights or anything like that. But I just want to narrow down exactly what I'm talking about.
Your take on this is like, life the most valuable thing? I think it's the most valuable thing, or like other objects, like antique objects, like example, Michael Jackson's gloves, for example. I mean, wait, it's a bad example. Do you think life itself is thing more important than other things, or it's less important?
To me, no, not really. To other people, it might be. Say, for example, if, just hypothetically, if your whole reason for living is your brother or your friend or something like that, then life itself might be the most valuable thing to you. But for me personally, and I think for a lot of other people as well, life itself is not the most valuable thing, because we need things in our life to actually give it value. We need other things in our life.
Do you say we could potentially use someone's meaning of life, what they're using to go through like hard times, and measure if their life is actually valuable or not, right? Let's say someone who's committed to, let's make the world a better place, save their environment, or like fight for their civil rights, women rights, or whatever, is more valuable than the person who has meaning that they have in life is to sit home and watch Netflix. You get me?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand your question. Can you rephrase it?
Right. The thing we could potentially use as a measure of how valuable someone's life is based on the meaning of their life is. For example, like someone who is committed to make the world a better place by sacrificing their own time, like the people who join the army to save the country, their, their people, and or the people who don't these sacrifices to make a world a better place, but more like stay,
Yeah, I think I can see what you're getting at. So I let's see, how do I want to say this? I don't think that to find value or meaning in life that you have to be selfless, or you have to have something outside of yourself that gives your life meaning. There are certainly people who are content with just them and themselves, and that's all they need. And as for whether or not we can measure their value externally, like maybe how useful they are in society, I don't really think that's something. Never mind. I'm totally lost. I lost my train of thought there.
right. Oh, just since meaning and liberty is what gives life meaning, would you conclude from that like meaning is more valuable than life itself? For more important?
So when I say life, what I mean by that is purely how do I When I say that there are things more valuable than life itself, what I mean is that there are things more valuable than just existing. You need other things in your life to give your life meaning, in order to have life and in order to live, your existence must be meaningful to you. If that makes more sense, if I'm being clear enough. And for me personally, I think that certain liberties are absolutely essential to being able to find, fulfill, and maintain meaning in your life. Without those tools, then you're left with no way to pursue meaning in life. You're basically left at the whims of others.
Um, well, so you talked about how liberty is one of the necessary elements of life meaning.
Mm-hmm.
However, some people like to make claim that liberty is actually the opposite thing. Like try to decrease it, like commit a sacrifice. You sacrifice your time, some of your freedom, free time you have, so you get good grades or you get example, or to if you're working at the gym, you sacrifice all that pain, all that time. You could have used that liberty to do something else.
Yeah, to some extent, you're right about that. I'm not taking any utilitarian stances here or anything. I suppose if I understand you right, let me just ask you, are you saying that if people, instead of having these liberties, if they were instead told to do something more productive, they could benefit society but better? Is that what you're saying, or am I mistaken?
Um,
Well, what was that? I
so
didn't.
what I think I was trying to say was like I was trying to say is you mentioned the liberty is what gives life meaning. I was saying
Oh yeah.
opposite could be made for that. Less liberty or not having much liberty is what giving.
Oh, okay. Now I see what you're saying. That to some people, discipline and sacrifice. So the fact that they do not have that much freedom in their life actually gives them meaning. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's an interesting take and a good point. But it sounds like they would have at least some amount of say or control in that manner. Say, for example, if people are serving in the military to serve their country, they obviously would have no control over what they're told to do or when they're told to do it. But if they are there voluntarily, then that was their choice, and it depends. It's easy enough to say in retrospect whether a decision was good or not, but in the moment, you almost never know whether the decision you're making is going to be right or wrong in terms of the outcome, until it happens. So if you're saying, well, I want to volunteer for the military, I want to go serve my country, sure, that's your right to do so, your freedom. And you might think that you'll be giving your life meaning by doing that, but again, you won't know until you're there. So if you could narrow down the question a little bit, so that we can play devil's advocate, which I think may have been what you were getting at a little bit, I think we can probably find a place where maybe my argument falls apart.
Let me move to the next question.
Okay.
Do you have any takes on death penalty?
Yes, actually. Funnily enough, I had to do a high school debate project on this, and I am adamantly against the death penalty in every way, shape, or form, but I had to play devil's advocate, and I had to advocate for the death penalty and why it's A, effective, and B, the morally right thing to do. So I'm definitely aware of both sides of the argument, and if you want to go into depth on that, we certainly can.
You're for death penalty.
No. I'm very much against the death penalty.
Okay, so it'd be nice if you could talk a bit about morally why we should be like further away from it.
Morally, why we should not use the death penalty is what you're asking? Okay. First and foremost, when it comes to my set of morals and beliefs, I am not a consequentialist or utilitarian whatsoever. So all of my decisions are motivated by principles. So to put this into context, when I say that we shouldn't put people to death, it's simply because I think that killing people, that's not the right thing to do. And secondly, if we do that, then it shows hypocrisy, I think, because if we kill somebody for killing somebody else, are we not justifying what they just did? So that's my moral argument against the death penalty.
So like you cannot commit death penalty like any circumstances. Like, is there an exception to the rule?
Is there an exception to the rule, to my rule of when it's okay to kill people? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. As I understand, you're saying death penalty should like never occur, right?
Almost. There is one potential exception, in my opinion, and I say that it's a potential exception because the science isn't all in yet. And so if there is somebody who has committed violent crimes, excuse me, and they have been diagnosed by mental health professionals with having antisocial personality disorder, or essentially they're a psychopath, some studies are showing now that condition is incurable and will never change. Some other studies are saying that no cognitive behavioral therapy and other means can help to reduce their psychopathic tendencies. Regardless, if it is incurable and they have an aptitude towards violent crimes, I think that's the only exception I would make towards allowing the death penalty. Because there's no hope for them to get better and to rehabilitate in society. And you're taking a risk that they're not going to be able to break out of a prison,
So you still will kill horrible people like Hitler or Stalin, right? Death penalty.
I'm not sure about that one, to be honest, because science has progressed so far since then, and they're not around anymore, so that we can only evaluate them in retrospect. We can only evaluate their minds in retrospect. So that would be a very tough one for me, and I'm not sure what answer I would give. I think if it were an assassination mission, I'd probably give the go-ahead on that, but if it were after the fact and we were conducting trials and things like that, then I would not put them to death after the fact. If it was to stop more bloodshed, then I probably would do that, though.
So one of the case you could take for your thing is mention those people who are antisocial or might have some troubled brains. Good. Even though they might have an impulse to do violent things often than others, could set themselves some values and morals or meaning in their life that could make them do the opposite. Right?
Um,
Like,
Possibly, and like I said, the science isn't all there yet. But if there's a chance for them to become better, then I would like to give them that chance. I don't want to take that away from them or away from others. You know, the lives that they might um, uh, make better. You know, if they're able to find a better path, I wouldn't want to take that away.
I was just mentioning that because so I read this study, and the study was what they did was like they took like people who had low IQ and
Mm-hmm.
put them in school, and what they thought would be they would give them the best quality education, and they could bridge the gap between uh, less intelligent students and those normal students. But however, they couldn't be able to do that. But the thing did accomplish is children ended up being more socially acceptable. They were social, so low IQ people would just end up to jail instead. Since they were socialized properly, they had a lesser
Mm-hmm.
chance of going to.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a great deal of plasticity in the mind, especially when you're younger, so it's easier to adapt. Uh, and I would even go as far to say as not just education or schooling, but I don't know why that person's saying he can hear you. But if you're participating in society in almost any way, um, that can make you more socially acceptable.
That brings to the next point. I think it's our moral responsibility to adapt meaning.
What was that? Well, didn't quite hear you.
I think it's our moral responsibility to adapt a
To to adapt what? I'm sorry, you cut out again.
deep meaning in our lives.
Is it our moral responsibility to find meaning in our lives? Uh, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a moral responsibility to it, but I mean I would encourage everybody to find what gives their life meaning. I mean, why waste your life away if you have this opportunity? Then make something of it.
Right? Because I was mentioning that because, like we said, if if someone was to adapt some meaning and could make positive change in this world, like not not commit suicide because they're living for someone else,
Mm-hmm.
some, or the people who are in the middle of a pandemic, people have meaning in their life as a save people around them that could bring about a positive change.
I see what you're saying. So, gotcha. Um, is it their moral responsibility to, for the sake of others, find a reason to live? Um, I mean, I think it's true that most people have people in their lives that care about them. Uh, and if they care about you and they make that known to you, then I don't know why you would not also care about them. So for the people that you care about, I think it is, you definitely do have a responsibility towards the people that you care about. So now that you make that a little bit more clear and put it in context a little bit, I suppose there is a moral responsibility in some cases.
When it comes to the value of life,
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I heard the first part of that. You may have cut out a little bit.
so when it comes to like the value of someone, individual human's life,
Yeah.
do you think it's completely subjective? Is there intrinsic value to human life?
Uh,
Or is it just
so I used to believe that there was an objective meaning towards human life, and I look towards science for that. I mean, the fact that humans have survived in the way that we have is quite incredible among the animal kingdom. And the way that we've done that is by cooperating with each other. It's not because of our intelligence. I mean, there are other intelligent animals, like gorillas are quite intelligent. The only thing that they're lacking is the knowledge that they can seek help and learn from and teach others. So I used to look towards science and say, well, if we've gotten so far by cooperation, by working together, then it's our moral responsibility, and the meaning of life is to give to others. Now, I still believe that personally for myself, but I find it very difficult to speak for everybody and put words in everybody's mouths. And so I think while that might be true for a lot of people, everybody needs to find what gives their life meaning on their own. It's not something that I think can be dictated from the top down.
I was referring to
You were referring to what?
I was referring to is life meaning. Like if someone's value, how value someone is intrinsic, objective or subjective. Talking about, do you think how our self-worth is works as we if a product would, like supply and demand, like for example, a historical item like a sword is very valuable because of the lens we look at. It's also quite subjective. So it's like I could hold a $1 bill and $2 bill. They're fundamentally the same, like both paper, because of the external value.
Okay.
Throwing it on.
Gotcha. So you're bringing up the fact that value can either be subjective, or in some cases, some people will argue that it can be that things can have objective value. Interesting. So I do know that for a lot of religious people, there are objective meanings to life, and that for a lot of religious people, there's also an objective morality. I'm not quite sure if I subscribe to objectivism in most any case. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with a no on that one. I don't really think there's much objectivity.
Still a bit confused. Do you think human life is most valuable thing, or is there more valuable?
Are you so okay? So I see what you're getting at. How can I say this? How can I phrase this? I don't think there's an objective answer to that, to be quite honest with you. I would argue that there are things in life that are more valuable than life itself, but I can't prove that objectively because we each have our own life. It's not a collective life, so what gives life meaning is ultimately up to each and every one of us. So I really don't think that there can be an objective meaning to life.
Okay. All this play this analogy statement of you and equal. Sorry, so you might as know, like some people would claim that human life is valuable because people are valuable because they're people. That might be their statement. You know, those like one of those 10-second answers people. Wait, but like an opposite case could be made for that. For example, Well, humans are also causing suffering. Every suffering, almost every suffering there is, like the global warming, like the wars that happen, you feel
Mm-hmm.
dangerous weapons we are making. So at the opposite end, it's like you could say people's life is valuable because they're people, but also could say
Mm-hmm.
are the people who are causing suffering, almost every suffering we have. Have any thoughts
Yep.
on this statement?
Yep. And warfare is where this argument uh, ultimately comes to a stalemate, because I think both sides of this argument are equally valid, at least when it comes to warfare. Because in warfare, there's so much suffering and death, and if your meaning in life, say, is you have many friends, perhaps family, who are fighting in the military, and they die, then you know, was that worth it? Uh, and the reason wars are fought is because, war is a struggle between pride and life, and you fight because there's a reason to, because life is so unbearable without whatever it is that you're seeking, that you are willing to go to violent ends to change the world so that life is better for you and perhaps others around you. But what happens is, in any war, there has to be at least two sides, and you're right. It creates great suffering, and I don't know it. It's hard. It's very, very hard to justify a war because of all the suffering that it brings with it. But I think it's equally as hard to justify the suffering that precedes warfare. The reasons that lead up to making people want to or be willing to put their life on the line for something that they believe in. It's a very difficult question, and it's a very good one, so I'm glad that you asked it. And to be more precise, for a yes or no answer, I think it would depend on the context for me whether or not I would give a yes or a no to, is war a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, overall, it's a bad thing, but sometimes it is the only option. Did that answer your question?
Right. And we talk about meaning is actually a important topic to humans because give someone self-worth, it defines how people view you,
Mm-hmm.
right? What they can do for you and how they act upon, and then people have their moral system set up.
Mm-hmm.
Would you think it's relatively important that we have meaning to an extent? Yes or no?
That we have what? What was that?
Well, would consider it is important to have meaning, right?
Yeah, I mean, without meaning in life, what do you have? You're just existing. And that's pretty miserable, to be honest. Um, to just exist is not a great way to be, I suppose. So yeah, it's definitely important to have meaning in life.
Well, it's important to have meaning in life, and people see that. But you could say, case could be that you're paying a cost to have meaning. For example, we will say it's delusional to an extent, right? It's you think it's important. people would say praying to God isn't a good solution to find meaning in your life because it's just delusional. Just here at the pointlessness of life and continue with it because they don't want to be fixated on a delusion. Have any thoughts on?
Your mic was cutting out a lot there. I didn't quite understand.
What I was trying to say was meaning is important. However, people could say you're adapting meaning. You're to an extent paying a cost adapting that meaning. For example, someone, let's say you're being a bit delusional when if you're finding meaning in for example, because they'll say God
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exist, or finding meaning something externally, will say still make the statement that it's only valuable because I think it's valuable. Still, if the object itself, if it's a chair, it's still a chair, value or not. It,
I think I see what you're saying. I'm not exactly sure how you're paying a cost for it, but I do understand that a little bit of what you're getting at is that sometimes value is attributed by external sources as well as internal. Like if you're placing all of your meaning on the value of internet like buttons and clicks and things like that, that's entirely dependent on other people, right? Am I understanding you correctly, or am I totally wrong?
what I'm trying to say is some people might say it's better to just stare at life's pointlessness, meaningless life, and continue whatever you're doing without like having meaning. What I'm essentially making a case is you don't need meaning to give for life to be valuable itself.
Your mic cut out a little bit in the beginning, but you were trying to make the case that a life does not need meaning to be valuable. How? Like, in what way do you think life can be valuable without meaning?
So, let's say to give you an analogy. So let's say wake up in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and like you get up, you take a shower and work out
Mm-hmm.
because when I go to work, and that's like a small meaning you have in your life at that moment. That's the reason you're waking up early in the morning, like stuff. But say you didn't have any of the meaning, and you just even if you had work, you wouldn't just be laying on the bed all day long. You have to move around. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
Humans can't not do something ever.
Okay, yeah,
It's like
no, I get what you're saying now. And to clarify, life without meaning or existence, that's not totally without value as long as you can search for meaning, or even hope, even just hope. If you can search for it, if you're looking for it, then that's something worth living for in and of itself, I think, and that can temporarily give your life meaning, I think. And so, in that sense, the value in life without meaning, I think, comes from holding on and being willing to keep looking and try to find something. Does that answer your question better?
It's a good answer. So, we talk about this book a bit. So there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning. It's written by a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
So what the book is about, basically, the psychiatrist was who was very sick, and so this person had this specific dream, and his dream was like, in this specific month the war will end and you'll be all free. Or if that person was sick and he was expected to die soon, but like he lived further than he was to die. Well, soon as that month passed, just died a few days later. Well, that shows the importance of hope or meaning. Like, oh, he didn't die sooner, he just kept on because of the meaning he had. I just have to, as long as that. But he realized it was no point. Any thoughts on this?
Your mic cut out a little bit there. So that this guy made a prediction about something, and then he lived longer than he should have, or than he predicted.
Then the doctors that he would have.
Okay. I think, no matter how long or short. Oh, welcome back. I think that no matter how long or short your life is, you can always find something that can give your life meaning.
No. What was I trying to get at was this event that shows in, let's say, in this book, gives us a real life example of how important meaning is, because that's what sustained him through those months. Since after that he had no meaning, has nothing to sustain himself, he ended up dying because of no hope.
What was that sustained him?
So that meaning sustained him, right? He had this dream that war will end and he will get out. That gave him some sort of sense of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just have to go through this. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna end. When that was the meaning he had, but when that meaning went away, the thing that stained him, when he collapsed.
What was that thing that he was hoping would go away?
War.
War?
Yeah.
It
was in Nazi.
Yeah. That's something that's very tricky to put meaning, to attribute your meaning in life to a hope, not only just to a hope that you're contributing almost nothing to, but to something that you have very little control over, like, say, a war. That's something that one person can almost never have a huge dramatic effect on unless they're at the top. So, and I mean, in a Stoic sense, I guess you could say that that was a very fragile meaning, and that when he lost that hope, excuse me, sorry, it probably would have been wiser for him to find meaning somewhere else than hoping for war to end.
All right. I'm gonna mention this book again. So,
okay.
What this book was about. This book was about this individual who was stuck in Nazi concentration camps.
Oh, okay.
So when I read it, what I got from that this book was those people had like no liberty, or right?
Mm-hmm.
They had a strict schedule. If they wanted to relax, they would get whipped. They get less food than everyone else.
Yep.
At the end of the book, what he mentioned it, what sustained him through all this time, meaning he without having any liberty, but he sacrificed almost all his liberty, was okay with it. Today, he will meet his wife and children.
Mm-hmm.
He also talked about.
Okay. So when the war actually did end, then what sustained him the whole time was hoping that he would be able to get out of there and that he would see his family and everything. But then the war ended and he was like, oh crap, well, what do I do now? Is that it?
No.
No? Okay, never mind. I'm just dumb. Sorry I interrupted you. You can keep going.
What he else talked about was people who lost a sense of meaning. As soon as they realized someone just lost hope, he said we could just tell who's gonna die next. Those people would just care enough, the guards would come and kick them, beat them up, they just lay down, they just couldn't care anymore, they would just start smoking, and though they could, he said
Mm-hmm.
this, that they would just whisper to each other, he's next, because they will see this person has lost meaning. It's like whenever you see some lost meaning, they just die in about 3 days. Situation happens.
I see. Yeah, well, is there a question to that?
I was just thinking if you have any thoughts on this.
I mean, in that kind of situation where you're being worked to the bone and you have no liberties whatsoever, if you lose hope, then you're basically giving in to whatever fate decides for you. You say, no, I'm not working today, screw it. They might take you out back and shoot you. So I think his analysis is mostly right. If your meaning in life is to stay alive and get away from there, as soon as you can, then you're probably going to do everything that you can to stay alive. So I think I would agree with him there, but I have not read this book that you mentioned, so I don't know how much I can really say about it.
But when I was saying this, I was still making a case that life is what makes life valuable isn't necessarily liberty, but it's more so meaning.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So to clarify, I do not think liberty is what gives life meaning.
I mean, it gives life some valuable.
Right. To clarify, I think liberty are the tools by which you can find and maintain what gives your life meaning. For people who are in concentration camps, I think what the author had, or the main character had, was hope. And to a certain extent, that can be meaning in life if you are deprived of liberty and everything else. You have to hang on to hope for the time being. But I did not mean to assert that liberty itself is what gives life meaning.
You didn't mean to assert that that's what gives
No.
life valuable or meaning? Both.
I use those words interchangeably, value and meaning.
Okay.
I think liberty. I think liberty is very essential to being able to find what gives your life value or meaning, if that makes sense.
At the beginning, I was thinking what your position is what makes life valuable as yourself in society. Like we shouldn't valuable. That's why we shouldn't kill you. That's what I was thinking. Not, or were you talking about
No, I'm sorry to have misled you and confused you like that. I should have been more clear.
Okay. So let me give. Can I give another analogy like that?
Sure.
The same book. Since that book talks a lot about me. So after this concentration camps, ends this, he was a psychiatrist, so he goes back to his job and he some sort of a therapy profession. One day he had this patient, and this patient was like, my wife died a long years ago. But I still feel like I could have done something only if I was there, anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or his philosophy that he developed in those concentration camps was sacrifice and meaning. So what he told the guy was, what if you died before your wife? What would happen to her? And it was back in those days, women weren't financially ready, so
Mm-hmm.
she would like suffer a lot, right? She would go on the streets. So take the author that the book had was, you committed a sacrifice for her, like she died for you, because if any time you died after, she would be suffering way more than you are right now. So this, as you have sacrificed that is what giving your life. What I'm talking about is, you say, well, what makes life valuable would be another third animal element would be sacrifice.
Okay, so I was with you in the beginning there, where he outlived his wife, and then what would have happened if he had not outlived his wife. Um, but I kind of lost you in the middle there. Sorry, I did not quite understand.
Okay. We see, so he outlived his life. He was saying that that's giving him a bit of a meaning. It's meaning to keep on going like this to feel better, because you feel well, like better that this is happening. It's a good thing that happened, because if it didn't happen, it would be worse. Someone he loved. That statement, or that something like that, gave him a sense of hope or me keep going, less depressed about about his life. What I'm saying?
So, um, what exactly is giving him meaning after his wife died? Like in the present, you said that the author or the main character went back to his job and he was speaking to this person, right?
Right.
And this person feels bad that he outlived his wife. What
Okay.
exactly is the problem here? I'm sorry.
I gave a bad analogy. Think of another. Uh, so let me just put the question of giving an analogy. I think sacrifice is be another element that makes life valuable. Valued.
I suppose it depends on what you're sacrificing. Um, and I suppose it also depends on what the end result you expect to be is. Say, for example, if you expect the end result is going to be something that gives you value in life, say you're doing something for somebody else and that makes you feel good, then sacrifice is definitely something. I think I would probably put sacrifice alongside liberty as a tool, not necessarily something that is meaningful in and of itself.
As far as I understand, sacrifice or it's what gives a lot of religious people meaning. Like, for example, it's
Mm-hmm.
Ramadan right now. Muslims are sacrificing their like
Yeah.
need want to eat food, or if you know those in Hindus, like they would just stay in one pause for like so many years.
Mm-hmm.
Like just Buddhists would just sacrifice all their time they could have spent with their family, friends, like just go
Mm-hmm.
in. For another example of non-religious conflict would be, say, when you choose a partner, sacrificed everyone else you could have chose for that person.
Mm-hmm. So, can I ask you, do you know what the purpose of Ramadan is? I'm asking because I don't know.
I think it's because the Holy Quran believe believe that's why they have this.
Um, so is the purpose entirely just to sacrifice, or like what's the end goal there? Is it to become closer to God? Is it to learn something from it? Is it to be reminded of something? Because I would still struggle to see sacrifice as something that inherently gives meaning. I think it's a means to an end.
Like I, because from what I'm getting as when people usually talk about meaning, they usually like you cannot have meaning without sacrifice, but you're giving a unique position at heard. It's like, for example, if the reason I'm saying sacrifice gives meaning is because, say, you're sacrificing all your time studying and maybe get good better grades, but that's giving you life meaning. I get your grades at the future, right? What's giving you life
Mm-hmm.
meaning is actually um, that thing. Or where am I?
I think I can definitely understand and appreciate where you're coming from there, um, but I think that sacrifice always has a purpose. It's got some objective. Say if you're studying, it's for grades, it's for achievement. If it's fasting, I don't know. There could be any number of reasons for that. Um, So I think I could understand that sacrifice could definitely play a very large role in finding or maintaining meaning or value. Um, but I don't think I'm convinced that it is something valuable or meaningful in and of itself.
Yeah, the thing is,
Mm-hmm. I can hear
most
you
of
now.
I made were because I thought when you're saying value is is was in the sense that you think humans should be humans or not. So most of the questions going through is it's kind of I see it'll love into our discussion. Misunderstood what you meant. Do you want to like end it here?
Um, we can end it whenever you want to end it. I mean, if you have more questions, your mic was cutting out a little bit here and there, so I'm sorry that I asked you to repeat yourself so much. I really am sorry about that. I just want to make sure that I'm hearing and understanding you right.
But it was like a pleasure to talking to you and have you.
Well, thank you. It was a very nice conversation. It was eye-opening. I thought a lot. I think I learned a little bit too. I'll consider what sacrifice um, can do for you in life and things like that. So, thank you for having me.